Welcome back, deep divers. You know where we are. Occult Archives. Same place it always is.
That's right. Back in the stacks. Ready to open up another one of those books people like to whisper about.
You know the ones. Mystical grimoires, ancient texts, all that good stuff. Secrets too dangerous to be read, or so they say.
Well, we're going to read them anyway.
That's the job, right? And for this deep dive, we thought we'd tackle episode 70.
Episode 70, a nice round number.
It is. The Hymn of Jesus, Gnostic Mysteries, Sacred Dance, and the Ritual of the Inner Christ. Sounds like a party.
Should be an interesting one. We've got some great source material this time around, mainly drawing from G.R.S. Mead's work on the Hymn of Jesus.
And just to be clear up front, we're not talking about your typical Sunday service hymns here.
Not unless your Sunday service involves a little bit of Gnosticism. This hymn is actually tucked away in the Acts of John.
One of those apocryphal texts. Kind of existed on the fringes of the early Christian world, right?
Exactly. The Acts of John was floating around alongside, and in some cases, even before some of the writings that made it into the New Testament.
Really? Wow. So we're talking early Christianity here. A time when there were all sorts of different ideas about Jesus and what he was all about.
It was like a marketplace of beliefs back then, different groups, different interpretations, all trying to figure things out. And the Acts of John, well, it came out of these circles that eventually got labeled as heretical.
Heretical.
Yeah, the Gnostics. But the funny thing is, it wasn't always a clear-cut division. There was overlap between these groups. Think of it like two branches of the same family, maybe, arguing over dinner about what grandma really meant in her will.
Okay, I like that analogy. So what were these Gnostic acts, that you called them romances earlier? What were those all about?
Right, so these Acts romances, they were like public-facing pamphlets in the 2nd century. Kind of Gnosticism light, a way to spread the word, so to speak.
But they kept the real juicy stuff secret, didn't they?
They did. The Gnostics were big on secrecy, oaths and all that. But these narratives, they presented some of those core Gnostic ideas in a more palatable, story-driven way.
So kind of a Gnostic version of Jesus' greatest hits.
You could say that. And for the people back then, these stories weren't just flights of fancy. They carried a certain weight, a ring of truth even.
And it wasn't so much the miraculous stuff that the Orthodox folks objected to, right?
Nope. It was the implications, the interpretations, the what does this all mean part.
They couldn't handle the Gnostic spin.
It challenged their worldview. Guys like Augustine, they recognized how popular these Gnostic writings were. So they tried to combat them by co-opting the narratives, purifying them, they called it.
Talk about a hostile takeover.
It kind of was. And it's actually pretty amazing that the Hymn of Jesus even survived. Most likely owes its existence to groups like the Priscillianists.
Who were they?
4th century Spanish group. Got tagged as heretics themselves, but they held on to some of these Gnostic texts, including our friend the Hymn of Jesus.
Talk about lucky breaks.
For us, right. Gives us a glimpse into this fascinating corner of early Christian thought. Offers a unique perspective on Jesus and what he was teaching.
So let's get down to it. Where does this hymn pop up in the Acts of John? What's the scene?
All right, so picture this. Jesus, he's with his disciples right before his arrest. Things are about to get real.
Intense.
And he has them all form a circle, holding hands, with him in the center. Then he starts singing a hymn to the Father.
Heavy stuff.
Oh, it is. And we actually have a more complete Greek text, thanks to a manuscript discovered in the 14th century. Really sheds light on Docetism.
Docetism.
This belief that Christ's physical body wasn't really physical, more like an appearance, an illusion.
So like a hologram.
Exactly, hologram Jesus. And the hymn itself, well, it starts with this powerful doxology. Glory to thee, Father. Glory to thee, Word. Glorious. Glory to thee, Spirit. Glory to thee, Holy One. Glory to thy glory.
Quite the mouthful.
It is. Packed with meaning, too. You've got charis, grace, linked to wisdom, God's goodwill, the Holy Spirit, even called the spouse of deity.
Spouse of deity. That's just...
It is, and there's a shift in the order, too. Mother, Son, Father. Then it ends with praise to the Father as light. Huge theme in Gnostic texts. Almost like that line from the secret book of John, Father of all fatherhood, boundless light.
Okay, so after this big, powerful opening, the hymn goes into this back and forth, this series of I would be and I would statements. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's like a call and response, isn't it? Mead thinks these antithetical verses weren't meant to be a solo performance. More like a dialogue in a mystery ritual.
Like a sacred conversation.
Exactly. Between the master leading the ritual and the initiate, someone going through this spiritual process.
So Not directed at all the disciples, then.
It seems that way, more like a one-on-one soul-to-soul kind of thing. And if you look at it through the lens of the Sophia myth, a big deal in Gnosticism, Sophia, the divine feminine, she's like the human soul, fallen into the material world, longing to get back to the divine. So the initiate could represent Sophia, and the master would be the Christ, guiding her back home.
Makes sense. So this hymn becomes like a reenactment of that spiritual journey.
Cool.
Let's break down some of these I would be lines. What about I would be saved and I would save, I would be loosed and I would loose? What's that all about?
That gets to the heart of Gnosticism right there. This yearning for at-one-ment with the divine, breaking free from fate, from what they call Genesis.
Like escaping the matrix.
Kind of. Like one Gnostic hymn says, the soul is wandering in the labyrinth of ills, and to be loosed means to break free from that, from the ignorance, the limitations of the material world.
And that I would be saved and I would save it implies a kind of reciprocal action, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Like in the process of finding your own liberation, you become capable of helping others find theirs.
Okay, so next up we have this line, I would be wounded and I would wound. Bit intense, no?
It is. It's got scholars scratching their heads. But one idea is that it represents the higher self, the divine spark, entering the heart.
Like a spiritual heart transplant.
In a way. And it could be seen as wounding the lower self, dissolving the ego, breaking down the barriers to let the divine in.
And there's that Latin translation too, right?
Yeah, I would be dissolved, consumed for love, and I would dissolve.
Powerful stuff. Points to the surrender involved in the spiritual path, as sometimes you got to be broken down to be built back up.
Sounds like a tough process.
It can be. Growth often is. So, moving on, we have I would be begotten and I would beget. New beginnings, maybe? That's the idea. This speaks to the Gnostic concept of the Immaculate Conception, or self-birth. It's about recognizing the divine spark within, realizing your true eternal nature, like being reborn as a Christ, a new man. It's not about physical birth, but about tapping into that divine potential for spiritual generation.
Okay, then there's the line that always throws me for a loop. I would eat and I would be eaten. Kind of hard to visualize that one. Right. But it's about this ultimate union, this merging, where the distinction between eater and eaten disappears. Like in Gnosticism, the Logos is often called the bread of life.
So to eat means to take in the divine essence.
Exactly. To be nourished by the life force that flows through all of creation. And to be eaten signifies surrender, letting go of the individual self and becoming part of something larger. It's about moving beyond our limited sense of self into a state of interconnectedness.
Makes you think about communion in a whole new way.
Doesn't it? Now the next pair is, I would hear and I would be heard. Interesting how I would see is missing, right?
Yeah, I noticed that. Why the emphasis on hearing?
Well, some scholars suggest that maybe seeing is assumed, that the initiate has already reached a certain level of inner vision. So hearing becomes even more important. It's primal, cosmic. It's about attuning to that underlying vibration of the universe, the divine breath, what they called Atman.
Hearing the music of the spheres, so to speak.
Exactly. And then, from that place of deep listening, comes true understanding. That's what I would understand, and I would be understood, is pointing to.
Finding stability in the midst of all the chaos.
Yeah, connecting with the true mind, the noeus, the logos. That's the source of true understanding. And from there, you can start to see the connections, the patterns, the deeper meanings behind everything.
And then we move to purification. I would be washed, and I would wash.
Classic baptism imagery there. Immersion in the ocean of living water. But it's more than just a physical thing. It's about cleansing the mind and spirit. Like in The Cup, where Hermes Trismegistus talks about baptizing yourself in mind to achieve gnosis.
Pretty intense bath.
It is.
Yeah.
But necessary for spiritual growth. And then things shifted gears a bit with Grace leadeth the dance. I would pipe, dance y'all. I would play a dirge, lament y'all. Suddenly we got music and dancing.
Time to party.
In a way. But this is sacred dance. Grace, often equated with Sophia, is leading the way, guiding the cosmic movements. The piping refers to the Syrictes, the player of the panpipe, creating the music of the spheres.
I'm picturing a cosmic rave.
And the dirge reminds us that it's not all just joy and celebration. There's sorrow, too, the bittersweet nature of existence. Like that gospel saying, we piped unto you and ye did not dance. We wailed and ye did not mourn.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. Okay, and then we get the 1-8, Ogdode, sounds or plays with us. The 12th number above leadeth the dance. What are the Ogdode and the 12 doing here?
The ogdode, the 8, in music it represents a full octave. So it sounds with us, means the initiate is attuning to the cosmic music, vibrating in harmony with the universe. And then the higher 12 powers, those guiding principles of the cosmos, they take over, leading the dance.
Like a cosmic conductor leading the orchestra.
Absolutely. It signifies a shift, an elevation. The initiate is entering a higher state of being, guided by those transcendent forces.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we have that killer line. All whose nature is to dance, doth dance. Who danceth not, knows not what is being done.
Yeah.
Use it or lose it, right?
You got it. It's about active participation.
Yeah.
You can't just sit on the sidelines. You got to get out there and dance with the cosmos, engage with the mysteries to truly understand them. It's like the Gospel of John says, if any man will do his will, he shall know of the doctrine. It's about experiential knowledge.
So it's not enough to just read about this stuff. You got to live it.
Exactly. Now, the hymn goes on with, I would flee and I would stay. I would be adorned and I would adorn. I would be adoned and I would add one. Seems like a lot of contradictions.
Yeah, what's up with that?
It's about balance. I would flee could represent that fear, that instinct to pull back from the intensity of the spiritual experience. But I would stay is the commitment to see it through, to find that inner strength. I would be adorned is about being brought into right order, aligning yourself with the cosmic harmony. And I would adorn suggests a reciprocal action, radiating that harmony outwards.
And finally, I would be at honed and I would at one. That's the ultimate goal, right?
It is. It's about union with the divine, letting go of separation, realizing that interconnectedness. The hymn continues with, I have no dwelling, and I have dwellings. I have no place, and I have places. I have no temple, and I have temples.
Sounds like a real estate agent's nightmare.
But it's about transcendence. It's about realizing that the soul isn't limited to a single place or form. It belongs everywhere and nowhere, in a sense. Like the Untitled Apocalypse says, God is both the house and the dweller within the house.
And then come these beautiful, comforting words. I am a lamp to thee who seest me. I am a mirror to thee who understandest me. I am a door to thee who knockest at me. I am a way to thee, a wayfarer.
Right. This is the Christ, the Logos, offering guidance and reassurance. He's the light on the path, the reflection of truth, the gateway to the divine, the path itself for those seeking their way back home.
Beautiful stuff. Okay, then things get really interesting with, now answer to my dancing. See thyself in me who speak, and seeing what I do, keep silence on my mysteries. Understand by dancing what I do, for thine is the passion of man that I am to suffer. That's a lot to unpack.
It is. The focus shifts here. It's not just about union of being anymore. It's about union of consciousness. The initiate is being called to see themselves in the master, to understand the passion of man through participation, through the dancing, the active engagement in the ritual. It's also about the importance of discretion, of keeping these sacred mysteries close to the heart.
So show, don't tell.
Exactly. Experience it for yourself. And then the hymn continues. Thou couldst not at all be conscious of what thou dost suffer, were I not sent as thy word by the Father. It's the Logos, the Word, that gives us the ability to even comprehend suffering, to find meaning in it.
Makes you think about the role of language, of stories, in shaping our understanding of the world.
It does. And then we get this image of, thou hast me for a couch, rest thou upon me. Followed by, who I am, thou shalt know when I depart. What now I am seen to be, that I am not. But what I am thou shalt see when thou comest.
So cryptic.
It is. But it seems to be saying that our current perception of Christ, the suffering Christ, is limited. That his true nature is revealed only when we transcend those limitations, when we depart from our limited understanding and come into union with the divine.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. And then we get to those lines about suffering. If thou hadst known how to suffer, thou wouldst have power not to suffer. Know then how to suffer, and thou hast power not to suffer.
Yeah, that one's a head-scratcher, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the key here is that suffering isn't just about pain. It's about fully experiencing and comprehending the totality of existence. If we can do that, we gain a kind of spiritual power, of freedom from disharmony. It's about finding power through understanding, not just endurance.
Makes sense. And then the master says, that which thou knowest not, I myself will teach thee. Divine guidance, right? Followed by, I am thy God, not the betrayers. Who's the betrayer here?
It's not just Judas. It's more like those forces that keep the soul trapped in the material world, in ignorance. The kakodaimon, they called it, leading the soul to bodies of death, spiritual oblivion.
And the hymn ends with, I would be kept in time with holy souls. Beautiful way to end it.
It is. It's about aligning with those who have achieved spiritual perfection, being in harmony with the holy souls, the masters. And Mead points out that there are actually two different concluding traditions for the hymn, which suggests it was used in various Gnostic communities, adapted and personalized.
Makes sense.
And the fact that the hymn emphasizes keeping the passion shown in the dance a secret, well, that just adds to the mystique, the sacredness of the whole thing.
Now, I gotta ask, was John, the beloved disciple, the one being initiated in this ritual?
It's possible, but in Gnosticism, John often represents more than just a historical figure. It could be a lineage, an archetype, a spiritual ideal. But Mead, he argues that this hymn is much more than just a song.
He thinks it's an actual ritual.
Yeah, a full-blown Christian mystery ritual, one of the oldest we have.
Wow. So deep divers, let's do a quick recap here. We dove into the Gnostic context of the hymn of Jesus, saw how it fits into the Acts of John, and explored the theory that it was used as part of a secret Christian mystery ritual. We also unpacked the symbolism, the themes of spiritual transformation, union with the divine, and the whole dance between the human soul and the Christ.
It's a lot to take in, but this deep dive really just scratches the surface. There's so much more to explore here. Gnosticism, apocryphal texts, early Christian rituals. It's a rabbit hole worth going down.
It definitely makes you wonder about those early followers of Jesus, what they believed, how they practiced, what they experienced, things that didn't make it into the official version of the story.
Absolutely. And it makes you think about the power of these hidden histories, these alternative spiritualities that existed alongside, and sometimes in opposition to, the dominant narratives.
So, deep divers, there you have it. The Hymn of Jesus. Not just a song, but a window into a whole other way of understanding Christianity.
A reminder that there's always more to discover, more layers to peel back, more mysteries to uncover.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep those torches lit.
You never know what you might find down there.
Yeah, it's the fun of it.
Yeah.